That's how the president of the European Jewish Congress recently described the concern over growing anti-Semitism in Europe. That includes France, where an increase in anti-Semitic attacks has raised the alarm. NewsHour Weekend Special Correspondent Christopher Livesay reports from Paris.
Every Saturday for the past 8 months, thousands of people have donned yellow road safety vests and marched on the streets of Paris and other cities in France, the so-called Yellow Vest protests. What began as and remains a mostly economic campaign against high fuel taxes has evolved into a more wide-ranging anti-establishment protest, sometimes violent, targeting policemen, journalists, the wealthy, the French president. But what shocked many here in France is that they've also at times targeted Jews.
The Yellow Vest movement is a largely leaderless one that's given a platform to people of all kinds of ideologies. Yet some people say it's that same openness that's allowed anti-Semitism to rear its ugly head.
Last February, police had to step in to protect prominent philosopher Alain Finkielkraut after he was bombarded with insults and anti-Jewish taunts. And some protesters have been spotted calling French President Macron a whore of the Jews and their puppet. Today's anti-Semitism, social media.
But the reality on the web is not a few hundreds, it's thousands, of course, every day. Every day.
Johanna Barash is assistant director of Dilkrab, a government agency set up in 2014 specifically to coordinate the government's response to hate crimes, including anti-Semitism. She showed us some examples of anti-Semitic postings.
It's supposed to be the hand of a Jew pushing on the people.
Many are offensive, but...
Oh, so crazy as you look.
I told you, I'm a man of my word. Where's the Italian?
All tactical units will converge on the location in 20 minutes. I want auxiliary units to cover all possible getaway routes.
Wait. Dr. Matt, what do you do with all your money?
You see, I'm a guy of simple taste. I enjoy dynamite, and gunpowder, and gasoline.
What's it?
And you know the thing that they have in common? They're cheap.
I want to know how much they're paying you to say who Batman really is.
This is our chance. I want Lau alive. The Joker, either way.
Hey, Jim, get a load of this.
Let's take the next caller.
Bobby Dent didn't want to give it to the maniac. You know better than him?
I think that if we could talk to Dent today, he may feel different.
And we wish him a speedy recovery. God knows we need him now.
Sergio Romano first.
Oh, yeah. I'm only burning my half. All you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm going to give it to them. Tell your men they work for me now. This is my city.
They won't work for a freak.
Why don't we cut you up into little pieces and feed you to your pooches? And then we'll see how loyal a hungry dog really is. It's not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns.
Hey guys, what up? Total Control 871, and today we're going to be talking about the rise in both anti-Semitism and poverty and how they directly coincide. Alright, so the first thing I'll definitely co-sign, admit, validate, that yeah, there is a rise in anti-Semitism. Is it a hell of Jews' own making? Is it a hell of their own making? Let's see if I can explain that. That Dark Knight clip, there was a lot of truth in there because the franchise does talk about inequality, poverty, what's going on currently in economics. What we saw in there was that we had a mob, and I suppose our yellow vests would be the analogy. Okay, so the mob is the analogy for the yellow vest. And the yellow vests are employing what some are calling anti-Semitic, because that's a Jews would have you believe that every last single negative criticism that comes their way qualifies as anti-Semitism, and that just simply isn't true. Every, and I mean every last single race and religion on the earth are open to criticism, can be criticized, but for whatever reason, it is only the Jewish oligarchy that have managed to jockey themselves into a position where they are completely above reproach. They cannot be critiqued in that fashion. You can talk about Catholic priests molesting boys. You can talk about Mormons kicking out gays. You can talk about the Baptist faith, some of the black faiths. They've been, you can talk about various white and black mega churches, money, corruption. You can talk about their money. And nobody blinks an eye. As Jim Baker's empire crashed to the ground, nobody blinked an eye. But when you start talking about the Jewish oligarchy, well, number one, being an oligarchy, and every last single thing that they control, law, judicial system, healthcare, sports and entertainment, real estate, our very lives are in these people's hands. Seriously. That kind of power, we are supposed to believe that that somehow they're immune. They're immune to this. They're not corrupt. Anyway, like our Joker says, cut you up, feed you to a dog, to your dogs, and see how loyal a hungry dog is. Of course, our hungry dog would be the proletariat. People like me, It is an analogy for when the poor, when the impoverished, when equality has cornered people. We see it in our prepper videos. Mr. Smith, good old kindly Mr. Smith, who was just last month helping everybody with everything, but now that government has collapsed, Mr. Smith has a gun to your head and he's going to take your water from you. So when you corner the desperate, when you make people desperate, the yellow vests have been made desperate. Okay? And what does Alfred say about desperation? About the mob? In their desperation, they turned to a man that they didn't fully understand. Okay? Which takes us to our anti-Semitism, our acts of anti-Semitism. Some of them are, some of them are not. That image of the hand, the Jewish hand holding, well, I guess holding people like me down. That's an apt analogy. That's fair game. That's not anti-Semitism. That's not anti-Semitism, I'm sorry. When you own that much, when you control that much, when you charge these fantastic prices, we hear them say that the Yellow Vest movement, it is an economical one. They're not hate groups. They're just a people who are pissed the fuck off over being poor. Aren't we all? Okay? So, pissed the fuck off over being poor. I guess I'll segue here into Silicon Valley versus the Jewish oligarchy. I really don't know how much longer this charade can be kept up. The fantastic prices of owning a home, the fantastic prices of renting an apartment. I've already shown you guys numerous stories. I've done videos on how homes can be created like that, you know. How much longer can you keep this ridiculous justification for these fantastic prices? How much longer? Because you are a locomotive heading toward a bridge and the tracks are out. Okay? The Jewish oligarchy is a locomotive that is out of control, has no brakes, and it is headed for the cliche bridge and the tracks are out. And unfortunately, continuing with our locomotive analogy, they're carrying a lot of people like us, you know. When the train crashes, the casualties are going to be awful. When it all crashes, it's going to be awful. We're seeing the automation come in. Everything is being done for pennies on the dollar. Okay? The 3D printing, not only is it being done cheap, because I remember, I'm going to say, 6-7 years ago, when I first started hearing about prosthetic arms and legs and all sorts of things being 3D printed. And being a cyclist, I can definitely understand and appreciate the craftsmanship with precision versus close enough. You know, Walmart is close enough, you know. But these 3D printers, they can recreate these things with precision. So we would see these stories. Fucking high school kids were 3D printing these prosthetics. Things that would normally cost thousands of dollars. You got fucking high school and college kids banging them out like it's nothing. But of course, our Jewish owned and controlled healthcare system. They've been charging how much for how long? And we're supposed to just... let's not talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Because why? you know, it's akin to having your wife's brother come stay with you for a while, and he weighs 700 pounds, and he's cleaning out the fridge, and he's just glutting himself like crazy. And every time you hint to your wife saying, "Geez, I don't know, should we start asking him to chip in?" and she throws in your face, "He was born premature. He only weighed 1 pound." The premature birth is analogy for the Holocaust. Okay? I do believe the Holocaust did happen. I do believe that it was one of the most sadistic things that ever happened. I don't want to go too far off onto a subtopic, but when I was watching some footage of the Holocaust, and the Holocaust went beyond warfare. I mean, that wasn't warfare. It was genocide, but it also was the collection of body parts. The women's hair, the braided women hair. Jewish people are well known for their hair. They have very lush, beautiful hair. The women, it would be braided, and they would basically scalp it off of them, and they would collect the hair. Something about to be woven into rugs. This is not consistent with warfare. It is also doing things like that, collecting body parts and hair. That's not even consistent with genocide, because there have been genocide campaigns throughout human history where one sect of people want to destroy another, and those are the hallmarks of a serial killer. Somebody collecting trophies. That goes to show you how fucked in the head Hitler was. His shit was on some serial killer type shit. And his generals, they took delight in this. So, hey, I get it. I fully validate, stamp, validate, I get it. I totally get it. Okay? But my dear Jewish oligarchy, okay, do I need to play you another clip from Amistad? We've all been brutalized, okay? We've all been pushed to unfathomable, torturous situations, okay? You're not the only one, all right? So you don't get to be the only one to rebuke criticism. Yes, criticism that comes in the illustration of your business economics crushing little people. Okay? You bought everything. You control everything. We're going to find out how loyal a hungry dog is. Okay? I don't know how long you thought you could keep up this charade. I was watching some documentary. What time have I got here? 17. I think I'll wrap at this because I don't want to hold you guys too long. Documentary. Was it because I was following the Trump Cohen thing? Because Cohen was big into taxi medallions, and I think that led me into a documentary. Anyway, I'm checking out, I'm learning about the history of the taxi medallion. Apparently, don't quote me, I might not have the exact year right, but 1912 or 14, very, about 100 years ago, basically. The very first taxi medallion was created, sold to a Jew for $10. I got curious, jumped on Google, converted it for the price of inflation, stuff like that. What did it say? 180 some. We'll just round it. $200 basically. Just under $200 today. $10 buying power. Okay. Now, even if you were to tack on profit margin, and also as I go to criticize the Jews as to how they hijacked the taxi medallion and caused the bubble to inflate to unprecedented heights, because if I'm not mistaken, at the zenith of the taxi medallion bubble, those medallions were going for $1 million or $1.1 million. They were just crazy high, if I'm not mistaken. The bubble hasn't burst, but it has sustained quite a few slow leaks in the bubble. The ride shares, bike shares, the docked cycling, the city bikes, dockless bikes, electric scooters, all this stuff. It's all nibbling away at the taxi medallion. And I believe it's like they're down to like 500,000, maybe 600,000. They've lost an incredible amount of value. But getting, excuse me, getting back to the point here, let me hit my dew. Getting back, see. You want to see? Mold. Oh. It's a never-ending battle. Oh no, I'm not an illegal alien, so nobody cares about my living conditions. You know, I be damned. Anyway, back to our taxi medallion. It wasn't just the Jews. Like I'm not here to beat up on Jews just for the sake of it. You had a great many Middle Easterns also buy into it as well. You know, Pakistani Indians, the whole shebang, right? The whole Middle East. So, and the way those medallions got to be so sky high from that initial $10 purchase, people would buy them basically like flipping homes, basically. And it's just crazy the way the value was assigned to it. You know, if you want to drive this taxi cab in this city, then you're gonna have to. It became a fucking mortgage payment. Jesus Christ, $1 million, $1 million. I'm sorry. It's like I was like I'm sitting. I'm thinking, taxi cabs are what? They're like Ford Crown Victorias or something. $1 million $1 million Fords. Fuck. You know, it's crazy. And yeah, and people, they foolishly bought it. So I guess there are some. What made people buy it? It was very predatory of the Jew, and then later of the Middle Easterns, because they went to sell. You know, so they bought their medallion for 500. I'm selling it for 1,500. You know, and it just snowballed from there. And it's like I say, it wasn't just simply Jews, it was Middle Easterns, and you had some Italians in there as well, and you know, Haitians. Oh yes. So it just simply became the clusterfuck that it is. But it does go to show how can I say this next bit? 22. Hold on. Who's familiar with this movie? The bridge collapsed in real life. Now, it was never really quite determined. Is the Moth-Man causing the tragedies, or is he giving warning to them? How does the Moth-Man fit into this? When you look at the history of the Jewish people, they've traveled the country, the world, moving from one land to the other, sometimes by choice, sometimes not by choice, i.e. Pharaoh. It's still a little up in the air as to whether or not they escaped Egypt, or was it an armed escort? Were they told to leave? Every time you turn around and you look at human suffering, the oligarchy is right there, not too far away. It doesn't, they're right there next to it, just like the Moth-Man. Every time you look, we just had a homeless man shot to death in his car. Okay. Now, from what I understand, this homeless guy was awoken, jumped behind the wheel, sped off. Corralled, cop gets out the car, shoots and kills him. Now, I'm not going to automatically take sides, but why was this man sleeping in his car? Do you understand? Why can't he afford a place to live? Why did it have to come to that? Why was our Jewish Moth-Man right there next to that tragedy. How long can our Jewish Mothman keep up the charade? Technology is moving forward by leaps and bounds. You're not going to be able to keep hiding how easily homes can be built. You can't keep up this charade forever. Transportation is becoming infinitely cheaper. It's just a matter of time until the paint that cars are painted with are solar. The paint itself is the solar panel that charges the car. How much longer can you keep this charade up? We've had these technologies forever. We're only just now being forced into using them. Why? Because poverty is dictating it. Poverty drives it. I don't want to hear shit about how great the economy's doing. The economy's doing great for people on Wall Street. Okay? This is not the product of a great economy. All right? I'm telling you. That really broke my heart. That guy was shot and killed, and it didn't have to be. He was fleeing, you know. I understand he didn't want the tickets. Tickets lead to arrest that you can't pay. The Mothman is right there for the mass incarceration. The whole goddamn thing is Meshuggah. Total Control 871.